88% of leaders say AI investments aren't going to really succeed without greater investments in upskilling and skilling. In essence, while AI is truly transformative, its success depends on having a strong foundation and getting those foundational elements right.
Welcome to the Coursera podcast, where we have conversations with renowned experts and industry leaders to explore global trends impacting the future of education and work. I'm your host, Arunab Sinha, Vice President of Global Communications at Coursera. Cloud computing revolutionized how businesses scale and innovate, and now artificial intelligence is driving the next wave of transformation. But as AI tools become more accessible, companies are struggling to keep up. To understand how organizations are navigating this shift, AWS and Coursera partnered on a recently published report, From Cloud to AI, a global survey of tech leaders exploring how they are building talent pipelines from cloud and AI, and what training methods are working and where gaps still remain. Joining us is Valerie Singer, General Manager of AWS Global Education. Valerie leads global efforts to expand access to digital skills. She has extensive background and experience working at the intersection of education and workforce policy across the private sector and on behalf of public initiatives like the CHIPS and Science Act. She is here to unpack the latest trends in workforce readiness and walk us through how AWS is helping prepare the next generation of learners and leaders. Valerie, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me, and I'm delighted to be here.
Let's start with From Cloud to AI report, on which we collaborated closely. One of the key findings is that while AI is top of mind, technical leaders are prioritizing cloud, cybersecurity, and data skills even more highly at present. Why do you think that foundational focus is so important for organizations trying to prepare for AI transformation?
Well, you're right that 95% of tech leaders have identified cloud transformation as really important and foundational to what they do. And the reason why it's important is, first, cloud infrastructure is essential for being able to operationalize AI at scale. And so when we look at customers who are customers of both Coursera and AWS, like Capital One, they've built all their AI initiatives on top of a very strong cloud foundation. And as one of the major banks who was first to go all in with AWS, they've really demonstrated how a strong cloud foundation can really help them augment their digital transformation over time. And when we look at data quality in governments, we see them as prerequisites to AI implementation. And so at AWS, we see firsthand all the time with our customers how organizations that invest in those foundational data skills are better positioned to take advantage of AI over time. And then lastly, organizations that expand their cloud footprint and AI footprint, for them, cybersecurity has become increasingly critical. And so groups like Siemens have recognized that their digital transformation is both cutting edge and that they need to continue to upskill to maintain cutting-edge security practices. In essence, while AI is truly transformative, its success depends on having a strong foundation and getting those foundational elements right.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very important. And we'll touch on some of those and another dimension, because the report also makes it clear that AI remains top of mind, with 88% of tech leaders saying that their AI goal will fall short without greater investment in talent development. And at the same time, they expect nearly half their tasks to be automated within 3 years. What kinds of skills or roles are becoming more valuable as AI takes on routine work? And what does this shift mean for how we train technical talent?
That's a great question. And I think it's an important one for anybody who is graduating with degrees in computer science, or those who are looking to reskill and upskill and really want to make sure that their skill sets are applicable and are critical going forward. And so software developers, for instance, are evolving from line-by-line coding to more design-oriented work and prompt engineering. And so we're really seeing this advent of architectural thinking as routine configuration becomes just more automated. What we also see is that valuable skills are those that AI can't readily replicate, right? And so that's complex decision making, stakeholder engagement, and management engagement, creativity, and that architectural vision that is meaningful when leveraging tools like AI. And that's why, as you pointed out, 88% of leaders say AI investments aren't going to really succeed without greater investments in upskilling and skilling. We're seeing this play out in all kinds of different ways in corporations. So I'll give you another example. BMW Group has really transformed this approach to software development by combining both cloud infrastructure with AI and skilling at the point of software development. And so that means that their engineers are maintaining their fundamental skills and are able to apply that creativity to all of their projects. So Thomson Reuters is a great example of an organization that has shifted their focus to teaching engineers how to leverage AI tools and not just core engineering principles, although those retain their importance in the organization. So the goal isn't to replace human capability, but really to amplify it.
I love the examples that you're giving because often this is not just conceptual, but how companies are actually applying this to solve real business problems. AWS education, global education, of course, a big part of that is training methods, how we prepare people at scale through online. But one of the things leaders said, it hands-on practice and high quality content and the ability to customize learning paths are becoming priorities when choosing an online platform. How have you seen those preferences play out in AWS partnership and ecosystem with learning providers?
I'll start first at our employers and organizations who are really looking at new talent. And tech leaders are telling us in the study that real world projects and hands-on development is really key. So that's a huge and valuable element of technical training. And they also prioritize practical skills assessments and being able to experiment in risk-free environments, right? So the ability to work in sandbox environments and to take risks and to fail and experiment again is really important for tech leaders to see in the talent that's coming in the door. And so we're seeing this across sectors and we're really making investments in that. So one of the programs that we sponsor through Global Education are called Cloud Innovation Centers. And these are facilities that are located in universities around the globe, providing students with not just experiential learning, but hands-on with AWS services and capabilities. One example is Arizona State University, where we not only house a Cloud Innovation Center, but one that is focused on rapid AI prototyping. And students get very, very deep experience in solving exigent challenges for public sector, and they produce open source assets. Recently, they did a project with Chandler Police Department, who was inundated with traffic violations processing, and built an automated tool using AI to make sure that the Chandler Police Department could get through these very quickly and spend more of its time on community engagement and really in the areas where the police can make the most positive impact for the community at large in Chandler. And I will say that that hands-on learning takes a lot of different tacks within the Cloud Innovation Center program. This summer, Cal Poly at San Luis Obispo, which also houses another one of our Cloud Innovation Centers called the Digital Experience Lab, hosted an AI summer camp for all California State University schools. We were oversubscribed. We had way more students than we could really take on. But those students who came into the summer camp, and we had 2 cohorts over 2 weeks, were able to get intensive hands-on AI development with expert practitioners, and were able to create open source assets in a very, very short period of time, really demonstrating that when students come together in a team-spirited hackathon approach, great things can happen. We are looking to replicate that AI summer camp model to bring it to more universities around the globe so that we can make sure that students can get that hands-on moving forward. I'll also say that for Coursera, we have developed a number of professional certificates with Coursera, providing students and new learners who want to come into this frame with their own existing skills and reskill, a number of certificates, including a few for Gen AI, one specialization for AI practitioner. And so it's just a very fully scaled platform that really allows students to come in asynchronously and really hone those skills and reinforce skills that they already have.
Fantastic. I think you touched on the student side, but there are 2 other cohorts. One is technical workforce and non-technical. And I want to touch one by one, looking at what are some of the biggest shifts you see coming in how technical teams are trained on cloud and AI roles. You talked a little bit about students. But what do organizations need to do now to future-proof their workforce for those who are already trained on technical skills?
Well, I mean, I think we say that they're trained on technical skills, but we're seeing how fast this world is moving. And every day there is something else that is launched for which technical teams need to be well heeled and to understand how it applies in their organization. And so organizations are really looking towards integrated learning experience when training is embedded into the actual work. In our survey, it really showed that tech leaders, don't think AI investments are going to succeed without this contextual learning, without really understanding how to apply it. And Georgia Tech, as a higher education institution, really demonstrates this well. So they've actually embedded AWS services into their curriculum so that they create that seamless connection between learning and doing. And then the other piece, too, is that customization is becoming critical. So one size fits all views towards how we train, how we enable, and how we build technical pathways for organizations and for students is changing. And so they really need to be tailored for what is going to be relevant for organizations. So Goldman Sachs, for instance, has created customized journeys for different roles within their organization, both technical roles as well as non-technical roles. And then there's this other piece too that's around continuous and adaptive learning. And so University of British Columbia, for instance, has embraced this approach. And so they continue to create those pathways that evolve so that they can keep up with technology changes and make sure their students can integrate those into their learning and then bring those to employers in the future. I think the bottom line to that is to make sure as organizations, you continue to audit to make sure that technical proficiency matches the technical training and that organizations are continuing to keep that up, that there are clear connections between learning and business outcomes so that organizations are not just, sort of making available teaching that doesn't really have an application. And then third, building those skills development strategies that align with not only the journey that the organization is on from a, cloud adoption or AI adoption, but where it needs to go to achieve those business outcomes.
Recent Lightcast report found that more than half of the jobs requiring AI skills today are outside of IT roles, means that's where majority of the population is for many companies. And for them, they may not necessarily need very advanced technical skills, but they do need AI literacy to essentially maximize productivity and innovations within the roles that they are in. So how do you see companies sort of approaching this problem with cross-functional trainings where it is actually meeting them where they are instead of expecting them to ramp up in highly complex technical type of AI training?
That's a great question. And of course, this is also shifting sand, right? Where this is moving very, very quickly. And so leaders are really evaluating what their employees across all technical and non-technical parts of their business need to know in order to be productive. But in our study together, leaders really expected all hires to understand how Gen AI could be applied to their work regardless of what their role is. And so there are a couple of examples of this. One is one of my favorite, and that's Singapore government's Skills Future initiative has really demonstrated how AI literacy can scale. And so what they've done is built role-based learning paths that help non-technical professionals understand AI's applications in their domains. We also see this, by the way, in education, where administrators want to know, they understand that faculty and that students are actually learning about AI and its application, but they also want to know about these software solutions and the assets that they have in-house and how AI can be leveraged to better build efficiency and operational excellence and readiness in their own higher education organizations. So we're seeing it across all parts of business. From our perspective, AI literacy means understanding capabilities and limitations, right? Understanding use cases in the domain in which you work, whether you're a nurse or you're in a factory or you are working in financial services or you're in operations, making informed decisions about AI implementation, so knowing when and where it should be applied, and then ensuring responsible AI use. And that means, choosing guardrails, making sure that you're using an ethical LLM, that you aren't sharing proprietary data like PII or PHI. These are all very important for even a person who's in a non-technical role. Again, we see organizations who are building AI literacy across their organizations, from the person who you interact with when you walk in the door to anybody else who's building more technical proficiency. And we think that's something that can be enabled through a really good and solid training path for organizations and their employees.
To build on your point, this broad investment approach that certain countries are taking is really showing up. And we do a survey, global skills report, in which we evaluate about 100, 120 countries and rank them on different skills. This time, we added one specific ranking called AI Maturity Index. Now, that takes into account both some third-party data from IMF, World Bank, and other areas, OECD, as well as combines that with what we see on our own platform instance of sort of enrollment and demand for AI, as well as actual performance of people in the courses. And it is not US, it is not China, it is not India, which was ranked number, it was Singapore. Singapore was ranked number one in AI Maturity Index. So it clearly, to your point, that sort of broad-based investment, which is just not in technical, but also non-technical areas and driving literacy across big population, is having a multiplier effect in terms of countries' own innovation and productivity.
Yeah, I agree. And there's another great example with Singapore, which I think is really important to take on board. And that's this idea of lifelong learning. My organization has as its mission to ensure that all education is personal, applicable, available, and lifelong. And it needs to be that way ubiquitously and for everyone. It's how we build equity. It's how we build economic empowerment for people who are not currently on that ladder, but can be with this type of learning and asynchronous learning that's available on platforms, including Coursera, just anytime people need it in an affordable way. But the example that I love is National University of Singapore. And National University of Singapore has an inspiring model called NUS Lifelong Learners. And if you have graduated from National University of Singapore, you have access to the entire course catalog at National University of Singapore for 20 years after graduation. And so it's a recognition, as you pointed out, and why the country of Singapore is so far ahead, that we are not, we're not 4 years and done when we're being educated. Going back and understanding the skills and the capabilities that you need to continue to learn to move forward in your career and to grow your skill set over time is really critical. So I completely agree with you. And so thank you for sharing those stats with me too.
You talked a little bit about equity and opportunity, and we see that many more employers are now taking on the role of an educator, Amazon included, AWS included. How is AWS thinking about its role in closing today's cloud and AI skills gap? And there used to be a time when you will build a talent ecosystem to support your business, but it's also even going beyond that now to actually bridge equity and opportunity gap within society. How do you see both interplay?
That's a really, really important topic. And I think we'll talk about this a little bit in different ways today. But the first is that we need to recognize that there's a skills gap. And what does a skills gap mean? It can mean a couple of different things. One, it's a skills gap between what an employer expects to be delivered from a student who's being educated in a university structure today, or through other non-traditional methods, either through boot camps or through asynchronous learning methods. But an employer is going to have a specific set of skills that they would like to see brought into their organization. The second way we see a skills gap is exactly what you said, and that's that there are socioeconomic and equity barriers to skills that prevent everybody from participating in the digital economy equally. And so both of those are incredibly important and incredibly key to making sure that not only that everybody has reasons and a right to thrive, but that we have the workforce that we need for tomorrow. So there's like a very pragmatic reason why we need to make sure that we can invest in both. There are a lot of public sector programs that are really designed to help to close the skill gap and that we participate in fully. The UK government's digital data and technology framework that we participate in very, very heavily, which shows how to approach this at scale. They're systematically upskilling civil servants across departments. They're transforming roles rather than just hiring new talent. The Queensland government in Australia has taken a similar approach, and so it's created pathways for current employees to develop cloud skills and cloud capabilities so they can continue to work and to thrive in the organizations and environments in which they work and live. These are incredibly important programs so that current workers can continue to grow and to evolve as the growing and different skills needs also grow and evolve.
No, on one side, it is disruption definitely has local impact on communities in terms of displacement and disruption. But what is universal is it is a global problem. no one country is escaping this velocity of change. And the impact is most felt by underserved communities who are already behind and further behind because of either access to internet or mobile technology. Over the next 5 years, Valerie, 2 billion people are coming online. As they come online, one of the first things that they would like to have is participate in the digital economy. And if they are denied that skill, that opportunity, that can become an enormous societal problem as well. So how do we turn this challenge into an opportunity? And what models do you think has kind of worked for AWS as you partner with governments around the world and nonprofits on expanding access to cloud and AI training, especially in underserved communities?
My team actually created something called the Skills to Job Tech Alliance. And we launched it in 2023 exactly to meet this time and to meet that challenge. And so we create direct pathways to from skills development to employment. And how we do that is by bringing together, as you pointed out, government, education, the employment community, and nonprofits together. This is not for the faint of heart, but when it works, and it works in 13 countries today, and we're continuing to expand this model, it works beautifully. And so our whole objective is to create a sustained talent pipeline. And so we focus on aligning educational curriculum to educators, to employers' needs. And so we do that by doing a gap analysis between an employer's requirements and what our education population is teaching. And we work with our educators to acknowledge that gap. And then we help to fill in those gaps by creating clear pathways. And so we create skilling pathways. We also close the gap with digital content so that the educational opportunities for students through way to employment becomes much greater. And so this does a couple of things. First of all, we're very, very focused in the vocational technology organizations within community colleges, within TAFE, like for instance in Australia with technical and further education, so that we're hitting the equity curve with where students are who are really seeking to create that throughway between digital proficiency and employment. And so we're also leveraging a lot of the digital capability that we have at AWS through AWS Academy, through AWS Restart, which is a program that is a workforce development that prepares individuals who are either out of work or underserved with entry-level cloud roles. And then we partner with groups like Coursera that offer hands-on learning experiences and a really fulfilling platform for asynchronous learning so that our students can engage there too and continue to grow their skills. So through the AWS Skills to Jobs Tech Alliance, we work with over 1,000 secondary schools across 13 countries. As I mentioned, we've prepared over 62,000 students for jobs, for entry-level skills, and we've engaged them with 800 employers. So these programs can work, but they do involve that level of engagement from all of those different groups who are, as you said, around the world, very committed to making this happen because we recognize that the equity gaps and we recognize what the economic development opportunities are when we make sure everybody can thrive in a digital economy.
In fact, our partnership fits right into that paradigm that you're talking about, which is how you just recently launched a whole new professional certificates in generative AI. What do you think sets this partnership, which is Coursera AWS partnership, which has been for years now, and how is it helping companies build internal upskilling programs that deliver results?
It's a wonderful partnership. We've been enjoying this partnership for a very long time. And as I mentioned before, when we did this study, every leader said that hands-on experience is critical. And through this partnership, learners can get hands-on experience. They get hands-on experience through the Coursera platform and with AWS services. And so millions of people worldwide can get access in 25 languages to Coursera. It's absolutely a powerful platform that we see can change lives, right? Whether you're a student in rural India or you're a career changer in Brazil or you're a small business owner in Kenya, you have the opportunity to access learning with the world's leading platforms and, arguably the largest cloud provider in the world. And so this is a strength that we can bring to millions of people. And so it's a pretty exciting time to be part of Coursera and AWS. But we also really enjoy our partnership with Coursera because the feedback we get from our learners. And so we learn how millions of learners from, that are interacting on the Coursera platform interact with AWS content, which helps us to refine what the content is and improve it. And as you point out, helps us to bring forth things like the Gen AI professional certificate and other professional certificates that we offer on the platform so that we remain very, very relevant to our learner population because we're taking their feedback and we're getting better and better over time. So we enjoy this partnership and we just absolutely cherish this partnership because of what it brings to the learner population to help them grow.
The pleasure and honor is ours as well. So let's come to the final question. If I'm a tech or a business leader listening today and want to start closing cloud and AI gaps on my team, what's one concrete step I can take this week?
That's a good question. And one is to find the most curious person on your team. And it might not be the most technically proficient person on your team, but find the most curious, pertinent person on your team and give them the space to experiment with AI tools. You will be absolutely surprised. And actually give them permission to fail, right? Because through failure, we learn. And while that experimentation is happening, create simultaneously a foundation of learning across your company. And so this is where platforms like Coursera become really crucial. Coursera offers structured pathways for broader team development. And so skills can be developed at team's own pace. And so you've got this two-phased approach, right? You've got your pioneers who are really going out and experimenting and discovering what's possible. At the same time, you're building up the rest of your organization with broader capability and a structured learning plan. And those two things, all boats will rise in that way. So too often, I think organizations kind of face this training conundrum and they say, we need to go from the top down and we need to do a one size fits all. And in this world and in this changing paradigm that we're operating in, I don't think that fits anymore. And so having this two-phased approach, I think, can help organizations move much faster and create, as I was talking about before, some of those customized learning pathways that meet the learners where they are, whether they need to be skilled, upskilled, or reskilled, and really helps inspire that creativity, that curiosity, and the platform to create new things for organizations to really make change happen.
That sounds like a great advice. Barry, thank you so much for being here. Your insights into the changing workforce and how cloud and AI training can unlock opportunity are incredibly valuable.
Thank you. And it's been an absolute delight to share some of this. So I hope that we can make transformative technologies available and applicable, as I mentioned, to anyone who wants to learn. And when we do that right, we unlock opportunities that can truly change lives.
Absolutely. And to our listeners, if you're interested in cloud or AI training, check out the new AWS professional certificate on Coursera.org. Like generative AI applications or generative AI for developers. Whether you're just getting started or looking to upskill, there is something for everyone. If you enjoyed this episode of the Coursera podcast, please rate, review, and share. Until next time, I'm Arun Absina. Thank you for tuning in.